Strange cases, eerie legends. Welcome to Shadowy Stories. I'm your host, here every night to tell you a tale.
All right, everyone, good evening, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving into another strange incident, this one happening in a factory. The story takes place in the autumn of 1999. The location, an industrial town in Pennsylvania, USA called Millfield. That fall, the Millfield Local Police Department received a report from the town's textile mill. The caller stated that a female worker, Eliza Mayhew, who lived in room 401 of the company dorms, had committed suicide in her room. Eliza was 25 at the time. Her husband, Arthur Kane, was a technician in the mill's workshop. Eliza herself was also a worker at the mill. After they got married, they seemed to have a good relationship, lived a pretty happy life, and had no issues with either side of their families. Moreover, her husband, Arthur, was the ambitious type, a bit of an intellectual, considered a key technical guy at the mill. Eliza herself was a young woman who loved her job and rarely had a harsh word for anyone. But for some unknown reason, she just left this world just like that. After Eliza and Arthur married, they had their own house, but it was really far from the factory, so they only went home on Friday nights, usually staying in the factory dorms during the week. Arthur stayed in the men's dorms and Eliza in the women's. Ever since Eliza died, the factory initially tried to keep things quiet, to pacify Arthur and Eliza's family. But after Eliza's death, strange things started happening at the mill. First, in various workshops, people claimed to see Eliza back, drifting around the factory grounds. This caused a lot of panic, especially during night shifts. Since the textile mill operated 24/7, these disturbances made it impossible for the night shift to work properly. Later, things got even worse. The three girls who originally shared room 401 with Eliza all moved out. They said they often saw Eliza return to the room at night, sitting on her old top bunk, head bowed. They also told the factory management that Eliza's sudden suicide in the dorm that afternoon definitely had something fishy about it. With all this going on, even though the factory tried to control the rumors, you know how it is. You can't keep a lid on things like that. The talk around the factory about Eliza's death was rampant. Some said, "Don't let Eliza's quiet, kind, and virtuous demeanor fool you. She was actually having an affair with the supervisor of Workshop 3, a guy named Lewis, and supposedly her poor technician husband Arthur even caught them once. After he found out, he might have said some harsh things to her, and Eliza, unable to bear the shame, killed herself in the dorm." Others disagreed, saying, "You've got it all wrong. Eliza had nothing going on with that Lewis guy. It was her husband, Arthur. He had some physical issues, hadn't really been intimate with Eliza since they got married, was emotionally abusive, and even threatened her from time to time. Plus, everyone knew Eliza was very introverted since she started at the factory. They figured she couldn't handle the pressure from her husband, and that's why she took her own life." These different theories had everyone in the factory on edge, each person with their own version. Work pretty much ground to a halt every day as everyone gossiped about Eliza. Just as everyone was speculating about Eliza's cause of death, at this very critical moment, something happened to Eliza's husband, Arthur. They said he'd gone a bit mad, and the factory told him to go home and rest. But while Arthur was at home recuperating, a woman from the factory named Brenda Jenkins, this woman was 39. She had been Eliza's mentor, the experienced worker who had trained Eliza when she first started. This Brenda felt sorry for Arthur and started visiting him at his home every day, bringing him things, talking to him. As time went on, you know how these things go, rumors started flying around the factory that Eliza's mentor, Brenda, was now living with Arthur. At first, people thought it was nonsense. There was a 10-plus year age gap. But then, It seemed to be true. People often saw them out shopping together. That's when things really blew up. Everyone started thinking that Eliza's death must have something to do with this mentor, Brenda. So the whole thing exploded again. The factory later reported the situation to the police. The police investigated and questioned this Brenda woman, but found no inconsistencies. It seemed Eliza's death really had nothing to do with her. Brenda just told the police she felt very sorry for Arthur and wanted to care for him. Plus, Eliza had been her apprentice. She said they hadn't initially planned on getting together, but then sparks flew. Age is just a number, she claimed. We're truly in love. Even the investigating officers thought the two of them were a very odd match. This Brenda wasn't what you'd call a gracefully aging beauty, not at all. Brenda was a bit overweight, not very tall, and looked quite a bit older than her actual age. But Arthur's husband, Arthur, was young, handsome, and dressed quite fashionably. Nobody could figure out how those two ended up together. So, even though the police couldn't find any holes in their stories, they were still pretty suspicious of the pair.
But just then, something else happened at the factory. A female colleague who used to share room 401 with Eliza, a girl named Sarah Jones, suddenly had a breakdown at the factory one day. It happened around 3 in the afternoon. Sarah was in the middle of her work in the workshop when she suddenly slumped to the floor, messed up her hair, and started thrashing about, rolling around. First, she sang some bizarre songs, and no one could understand a word she was saying. After a while, the factory managers arrived, along with security, of course. Once they managed to calm her down and get her seated, they started questioning her. The woman then claimed to be Eliza Mayhew, and when she spoke about Eliza's life, she got every detail right, down to the T. The factory staff even quizzed her on some of Eliza's private matters, and she even correctly named Eliza's mother. The managers were stunned. How had Sarah turned into Eliza? With the help of a few security guards, the managers began to question Sarah, or rather Eliza. You say you're Eliza, then tell us, why are you possessing Sarah? What do you want from us? This isn't over, Sarah said, in a voice that was nothing like her own. Sarah has done nothing to me. She's my good friend. I was too weak when I was alive. This can't end like this. I have to tell the truth. Do you know why I died? My so-called mentor, Brenda, she seduced my husband. And my husband actually told me she was more like a real woman than I was. I was young and pretty. Was Arthur insane? How could he fall for Brenda? What does she have that I don't? Are you all blind? I can't accept it. I can't. I went to talk to Arthur, and he actually wanted to divorce me. Said he was in love with that old woman. I really couldn't accept it. I admit, they didn't kill me. Legally, they might not get punished. But don't you worry. I will make their lives miserable, because I haven't left. I've been here, in this factory all along. That conversation, with 4 security guards and 2 office managers present, sent chills down their spines. My God, no wonder strange things had been happening in the factory, and some people had even reported seeing a woman in a red dress who looked like Eliza. Could it be that this Sarah wasn't faking it? That Eliza, as she said, hadn't left the factory and was still lingering there? Because Sarah's episode caused such a commotion that day, with so many people watching, everyone saw it. The factory tried to suppress the news, but it was impossible. Half of the women from the workshop were there. The stories spread like wildfire through the workshop again. The entire factory, even the nearby diners, would ask the mill workers when they saw them, "Hey, is your factory still haunted? What happened to that female worker who died?" Everyone was hoping Eliza would give them an answer. Some of the more righteous people weren't even afraid of Eliza. They felt there was definitely more to the story and hoped that one day her husband Arthur and his mentor Brenda would face Eliza's retribution. But as days turned into weeks, people grew disappointed. Eliza didn't seem to be punishing her husband Arthur. In less than 6 months, Arthur was back at work. Eliza's mentor, that Brenda,
shamelessly married Arthur, and they started living together openly. Moreover, Brenda often boasted around the factory that she was going to have Arthur's child. The factory workers could only fume silently. They all felt this couple was incredibly deceitful, appearing normal on the surface, but capable of such disgusting things. But just when everyone was about to give up on the matter, or rather forget about it, in the year 2000, the millennium year, the factory decided to hold a large year-end celebration. It was the turn of the century after all. But on December 31st, New Year's Eve, during the company party, that woman, Brenda Jenkins, Eliza's mentor, suddenly ran to the rooftop of the tallest office building in the factory complex and screamed at the top of her lungs for everyone in the factory to hear. "Eliza, stop tormenting me! I'll give it back to you, okay? I'm coming to see you now!" And then, with a sickening thud, the sound of a body hitting the concrete ground, Brenda Jenkins fell from the 17th floor and died instantly. All right, folks, that's the story for tonight. Thanks for listening and keeping me company. Our channel gets straight to the point, no long intros, stories done, and then we say goodbye. Because I need to get tomorrow's story ready for you. Tomorrow's will be even more thrilling, so I hope you'll keep listening. Friends, I'll see you again tomorrow night.